The glass wall on the 99th floor of Vought Tower did not just break. It exploded outward like a bomb went off inside the room. A hole tore open in the middle of the air. It looked like a red wound in the sky. Wind screamed through the office. Papers flew everywhere. The alarm system started to blare. A large shape fell out of the red hole and crashed onto the polished floor. The floor cracked under the weight. The object was a man. He was huge. He was covered in black armor that looked like it was made of jagged metal. He smelled like old blood and dry dirt. He lay there for a second. Steam rose off his body. In his hand was a sword. It was not a normal sword. It was a giant slab of iron. It was as long as a tall man and as thick as a curb. It looked too heavy for any human to lift. But the man gripped it tight. His metal hand dug into the handle. Blood pooled under him. It was dark and thick. Ashley Barrett stood near the door. She was shaking. She had seen Soups do crazy things, but this felt different. The air in the room felt heavy. It felt cold and evil. It made her stomach hurt. She wanted to run, but her legs would not move. 3 security guards in black uniforms ran into the room. They had big rifles. They pointed them at the man on the floor. They yelled at him to stay down. The man opened his one good eye. It was wide and full of rage. He did not look scared of the guns. He looked like a wild animal that was cornered. He stood up. His knees popped. The armor clanked. He was taller than the guards. He swung the giant sword. The movement was a blur. The iron slab hit the guards. It did not cut them like a knife. It crushed them. The force blew them apart. They hit the back wall in pieces. The sound was wet and loud. Homelander flew in through the broken window. He landed softly. His cape fluttered in the wind. He looked at the mess. He looked at the blood on his clean white walls. He was not happy. He smiled, but his eyes were cold. He looked at the man in black armor. He thought this was a joke. He thought maybe a new villain was trying to make a name for himself. Homelander walked forward. He did not put his hands up. He did not need to. He was the strongest man in the world. Or so he thought. The man in the armor turned. On his neck was a strange mark. It looked like a brand for cattle. The mark started to bleed. The man grabbed his neck. He groaned in pain. He looked at Homelander. He did not see a hero. He sensed a monster. The man roared. It was a sound that shook the glass. He lifted the giant sword over his head. He charged. Homelander laughed. He stood still and let the man swing. He expected the sword to bounce off his skin. The iron blade came down with the weight of a mountain. It hit Homelander in the shoulder. The floor shattered beneath them. Homelander eyes went wide. For the first time in years, he felt something heavy. He felt a bruise forming. The tower groaned. This was not a rescue mission. This was a war. Homelander looked at his shoulder. The blue fabric of his suit was ripped. Underneath the fabric, his skin was red. It was not bleeding, but it was angry and swollen. He touched it. He winced. Pain was a new thing for him. He had not felt pain since he was a child in a lab. He looked up at the man in the black armor. The man was breathing hard. The giant sword was resting on the floor. The man had a metal hand. He looked tired but dangerous. Homelander felt a cold feeling in his chest. It was fear. He pushed it down. He replaced the fear with anger. He was the Homelander. He could not be hurt by a dirty man with a piece of scrap metal. Homelander eyes glowed red. 2 beams of heat shot out. They moved faster than a bullet. The man in black moved the giant sword. He put the flat side of the blade in front of his face. The lasers hit the iron. The sound was like a scream. Sparks flew everywhere. The iron started to glow orange. The man did not let go. He grunted. The force of the lasers pushed him backward. His metal boots carved deep lines into the floor. He slid through the office. He hit the wall. He went through the wall. He crashed into the hallway. Dust and drywall filled the air. Homelander stopped the lasers. He floated off the ground. He flew through the hole in the wall. He wanted to rip the man apart. He entered the hallway. It was empty. There was a hole in the floor. The man had smashed through the concrete to the floor below. Homelander frowned. He flew down the hole. He landed on the 98th floor. It was a marketing office. People were screaming. They were hiding under desks. The man in black was running. He was not fast like A-Train, but he ran with heavy steps. He knocked over cubicles. He did not care about the people. He just wanted to find a way out. The man saw a window. He ran towards it. Homelander flew at him. He slammed into the man back. The armor crunched. The man flew forward. He smashed through the glass window. He fell out of the tower. They were very high up. The wind was strong. The man tumbled in the air. Homelander flew out after him. He watched the man fall. He expected the man to scream. The man did not scream. He twisted his body in the air. He grabbed his cape. He pulled a small knife. He threw 3 small knives at Homelander. Homelander did not dodge. The knives hit his face. They bounced off. They did not hurt him, but they annoyed him. The man pulled a lever on his metal arm. A loud boom echoed over the city. A cannonball shot out of his metal hand. It hit Homelander in the chest. The explosion was big. Smoke covered the sky. Homelander was pushed back by the force. He coughed. The smoke smelled like sulfur. He waved his hand to clear the air. He looked down. The man was gone. He had fallen into the concrete jungle of the city. Homelander scanned the streets with his X-ray vision. There were too many people. There were too many cars. The lead in the buildings blocked his sight. He screamed. It was a loud cry of rage. He flew back up to the tower. Guts hit the ground hard. He had aimed for a lower roof. He crashed through a skylight. He landed on a pile of boxes. The boxes broke his fall. He rolled. His body hurt. His ribs felt cracked. The armor held him together. He stood up. He was in a warehouse. It was dark. He smelled cardboard and plastic. He coughed up blood. He spit it on the floor. He needed to move. That flying man was strong. He was stronger than most apostles. Guts knew he could not win a long fight. Not yet. He needed to heal. He needed to understand where he was. He walked to the door. He kicked it open. He stepped out into an alley. The noise hit him first. It was a constant roar. Sirens wailed in the distance. People were shouting. Cars were honking. The air smelled of exhaust and garbage. It was not the smell of a battlefield. It was the smell of a city that never slept. Guts looked at the sky. The buildings were made of glass and steel. They touched the clouds. He had never seen towers this high. He wondered if he was in a different layer of the astral world. His brand began to bleed again. It trickled down his neck. The pain was sharp. It meant monsters were near. He gripped his sword. He wrapped his cloak around him to hide the armor. The sword was too big to hide. He dragged it behind him. The tip scraped the asphalt. Sparks flew. He walked out of the alley. He was on a busy street. People stopped. They stared at him. They took out small rectangles of glass and pointed them at him. Flashlights went off. Guts snarled. He did not like being watched. A car honked at him. It was a yellow taxi. The driver yelled something angry. Guts looked at the metal beast. He did not know what a car was. He thought it might be a demon. He lifted his sword. The driver screamed and reversed the car. He hit the car behind him. Metal crunched. Guts kept walking. He needed a place to hide. He saw a dark tunnel ahead. It was a subway entrance. He walked down the stairs. The air was stale. He jumped over the turnstile. A police officer yelled at him. The officer put a hand on his gun. Guts looked at the officer. The officer saw the one eye. He saw the scars. He saw the giant slab of iron. The officer froze. He let Guts pass. Guts walked into the dark tunnel. He heard a rumble. A train was coming. The lights on the train looked like eyes. Guts prepared to fight the metal worm. The train rushed past him. The wind blew his cloak. It did not attack. It just carried people. Guts relaxed slightly. He walked deeper into the tunnel. He found a maintenance alcove. He sat down. He leaned against the damp wall. He closed his eye. He needed to rest. Back in Vought Tower, things were chaotic. Ashley Barrett was on the phone. She was pacing back and forth. Her hair was a mess. She was yelling at someone. She told them to cut the live feed. She told them to scrub the internet. She said it was a gas leak. She said it was a movie shoot gone wrong. She lied quickly. Homelander stood by the broken window. He was staring at the city. He was quiet. This was worse than him yelling. Deep down, he was scared. He touched his shoulder again. The bruise was turning purple. He had never seen his own skin turn purple. He felt mortal. He did not like it. Black Noir entered the room. He did not speak. He just stood there. He looked at the damage. He looked at the blood on the floor. Homelander turned to him. He pointed a finger at Noir. He told Noir to find the man. He told Noir to bring the man to him alive. He wanted to kill the man slowly. He wanted to see if the man could bleed like he did. Noir nodded. He turned and left. He moved silently. He was a hunter. He would find the scent. Billy Butcher sat in a dirty van. The van was parked 3 blocks away from Vought Tower. He was drinking tea from a thermos. Huey Campbell was in the passenger seat. Huey was looking at a tablet. He was nervous. He kept tapping his foot. Butcher looked at the tower. He saw the smoke. He saw the hole. He had heard the scanner reports. Police were talking about a man in armor. They were talking about a giant sword. Butcher smiled. It was a cruel smile. He liked chaos. Chaos was good for business. Huey asked what happened. Butcher said someone poked the bear. He said someone actually hurt the big blue boy scout. Huey asked how he knew. Butcher said he saw Homelander fly back in. He said Homelander looked rattled. He said Homelander never looked rattled. Butcher started the van. He said they were going to find the new player. Huey asked if that was safe. Butcher laughed. He said safe was not an option. He said they needed a weapon. Maybe this man was the weapon. They drove towards the last sighting. The police scanner said the suspect went into the subway near 42nd Street. Butcher drove fast. He ran a red light. Huey grabbed the dashboard. They parked near the subway entrance. Butcher got out. He grabbed a crowbar. He put on his long coat. Huey followed him. They walked down the stairs. The station was empty. The police had cleared it out. They were waiting for SWAT. Butcher did not wait for SWAT. He hopped the gate. He walked down the platform. He looked at the tracks. He saw scratch marks on the concrete. They were deep grooves made by something heavy. Butcher signaled Huey to be quiet. They walked into the tunnel. It was dark. Water dripped from the ceiling. Rats scurried away. Butcher turned on a flashlight. He swept the beam across the walls. He saw a shape in the shadows. It was sitting in an alcove. It looked like a pile of scrap metal. Butcher stopped. He held up his hand. The shape moved. A single eye opened. It reflected the light. It looked like the eye of a wolf. Guts stood up. The armor clanked. He held the sword in one hand. He was ready to swing. Butcher put the crowbar down slowly. He raised his hands. He told Huey to stay back. Butcher spoke. His voice was rough. He asked Guts if he was the one who knocked on the tower door. Guts did not answer. He just watched. He analyzed the threat. Butcher was not a soldier. He had no armor. He had a weak weapon. But his eyes were hard. He had the eyes of a man who had seen death. Butcher took a step forward. He said he was not with the Capes. He said he hated the Capes. He said he saw what Guts did. He said it was beautiful. Guts lowered the sword an inch. He asked where he was. His voice was deep and raspy. It sounded like grinding stones. Butcher said he was in New York. He said he was in the belly of the beast. Guts did not know New York. He asked if this was the domain of the hawk. Butcher did not understand. He looked at Huey. Huey shrugged. Butcher said he did not know any hawk. He said the boss here was a cunt named Homelander. Guts flinched. The name meant nothing. But the feeling remained. The brand on his neck was burning hot. He looked past Butcher. He looked down the tunnel. He sensed something coming. It was not a train. It was something fast and silent. Guts pushed Butcher aside. He swung the sword at the darkness. There was a clang of metal on metal. Black Noir stepped into the light. He had blocked the sword with his arm braces. He was strong, but the force of the blow made his knees buckle. Butcher grabbed Huey and pulled him behind a pillar. He watched. He had never seen anyone overpower Noir. Guts did not stop. He swung again. This time he used two hands. The sword moved faster. Noir jumped back. He threw knives. The knives hit Guts' armor. They did nothing. Guts charged. He roared. The sound echoed in the tunnel. It was a primal sound. Noir was fast. He dodged the blade. He punched Guts in the face. Guts' head snapped back. But he did not fall. He headbutted Noir. The sound of the impact was sickening. Noir stumbled. Guts kicked Noir in the chest. Noir flew back. He hit the third rail. Sparks exploded. Noir convulsed. He rolled away. He stood up. He looked at Guts. He tilted his head. He realized this was not a normal criminal. Guts raised the sword again. The brand was bleeding freely now. The pain gave him focus. He knew this silent assassin was one of the monsters. He had to kill it. Butcher yelled at Guts. He said the cops were coming. He said more soups would come. He said they had to leave. Guts looked at Butcher. He looked at Noir. He made a choice. He could not fight an army alone, not in this condition. He sheathed the sword on his back. He ran towards Butcher. Butcher pointed to a service door. They ran through it. They entered a maze of old tunnels. They ran until their lungs burned. They came out into a basement of an old building. It was dusty. Butcher leaned against a wall. He was panting. He looked at Guts. Guts was standing tall. He was not out of breath. He was wiping blood from his neck. Butcher laughed. It was a nervous laugh. He asked Guts who he was. Guts looked at him. He said his name was Guts. Butcher nodded. He extended his hand. He said his name was Billy Butcher. He said they had a common enemy. He said he liked Guts' style. Guts did not shake his hand. He just stared. He did not trust easily. Trust had cost him everything before. Huey looked at Guts' sword. He asked how heavy it was. Guts did not answer. He sat down on a crate. He started to adjust his armor. He took off a metal plate. Underneath his skin was covered in scars. Bite marks. Burn marks. Cut marks. It was a map of pain. Huey looked away. He felt sick. Butcher watched closely. He saw the brand on the neck. He saw the way it bled. He asked what the mark was. Guts touched the brand. He said it was a curse. He said it drew demons to him. Butcher lit a cigarette. He took a long drag. He blew the smoke out. He said in this town the demons wore capes. He said Guts would fit right in. Back at the tower, Homelander was losing his mind. He was destroying his office. He smashed his desk. He threw a statue through the wall. Ashley was crying in the corner. Homelander stopped. He looked at her. He told her to stop crying. He told her to fix it. He flew out the window. He went to the clouds. He needed to be above everyone. He needed to feel like a god again. But his shoulder throbbed. The pain was a reminder. He was not untouchable. Someone had touched him, and that person was still out there. Homelander looked down at the city lights. They looked like stars. He vowed to find the man in black. He vowed to burn him until there was nothing left but ash. The deep was in the ocean. He was talking to a dolphin. The dolphin told him about a disturbance. It said something fell from the sky. It said the water tasted like iron near the docks. The deep swam towards the city. He wanted to help. He wanted to be back in the Seven. He thought if he caught the bad guy, Homelander would forgive him. He did not know what was waiting for him. He did not know that a shark was nothing compared to the Black Swordsman. Guts finished fixing his armor. He stood up. He looked at Butcher. He asked for food. Butcher smiled. He said he knew a place. He said they could get a curry. Guts did not know what curry was. He just knew he needed meat. He needed strength. The night was long, and the hunt was just beginning. He checked his sword one last time. It was ready. He was ready. The world had changed, but the war was the same. It was always a struggle to survive. It was always him against the darkness, and he would not lose. Not while he still drew breath. Butcher drove the van into a derelict garage in Queens. The door rattled shut behind them. It was dark inside. The air smelled of oil and stale tobacco. Guts sat in the back. He had not moved for the entire ride. His eye was open. He was watching the windows. He was watching the shadows. Huey sat opposite him. Huey was trying to make himself small. He looked at the massive sword resting against Guts' leg. The iron was stained with dark blood. It was drying and turning black. Huey felt like he was sitting in a cage with a tiger. Butcher killed the engine. The silence was heavy. He turned around in his seat. He looked at Guts. He told Guts they were safe for now. He said this was a place Vought did not know about. Guts did not relax. He grunted. He stood up. His head almost brushed the roof of the van. He opened the back doors and stepped out. The concrete floor was cracked. There were tools scattered on a workbench. Guts walked to the workbench. He picked up a heavy wrench. He weighed it in his hand. It was light as a feather to him. He put it down. Frenchie and Mother's Milk were waiting in the office upstairs. They heard the van. They came down the metal stairs. Frenchie was holding a gun. was holding a baseball bat. They stopped when they saw Guts. They saw the armor. They saw the metal hand. They saw the sheer size of him. Frenchie lowered his gun slowly. He whispered something in French. He asked if this was the weapon Butcher talked about. Butcher climbed out of the van. He clapped his hands. He introduced the team. He told them to put the toys away. He said Guts was a guest. did not put the bat away. He looked at Guts with suspicion. He saw the violence in the man. He saw the way Guts stood. It was a stance of constant readiness. Asked what happened at the tower. Butcher laughed. He said Guts gave Homelander a love tap. eyes went wide. He looked at the sword. He asked if that piece of scrap metal actually hurt the Homelander. Guts looked at He spoke. He said the metal was not scrap. He said it was a Dragonslayer. He said if it could kill an apostle, it could kill a man in a cape. Butcher ushered them upstairs. The room was cluttered. There were monitors on the wall. There were maps of the city. There was a small kitchen. Butcher opened a takeout bag. He put containers of curry on the table. The smell filled the room. It was spicy and rich. Guts walked to the table. He did not sit. He grabbed a container. He used his metal hand to hold it. He used a plastic spoon with his real hand. He ate fast. He did not taste it. He just shoveled the fuel into his body. He ate the bones of the chicken. He crunched them. The sound made Huey wince. Frenchie watched Guts eat. He was fascinated. He asked about the arm. He asked about the cannon. Guts stopped eating. He looked at Frenchie. He said it was a tool. He said he lost the arm to a friend. The way he said friend made the room go cold. It was a word dripping with hate. Frenchie nodded. He understood trauma. He saw the ghosts in Guts' eye. Suddenly Guts stopped chewing. He dropped the spoon. He grabbed his neck. The brand was bleeding. It was not a trickle this time. It was a flow. He fell to his knees. He groaned. It sounded like a growl. Butcher drew his gun. He looked at the monitors. The screens were flickering. Static washed over the images. Guts yelled. He said they were here. He said the darkness was here. The wall exploded. It was not a door opening. The entire brick wall of the second floor disintegrated. A blue blur shot into the room. It moved so fast the air cracked. Papers flew everywhere. The monitors shattered. A-Train stood in the middle of the room. He was holding the container of curry guts he'd been eating. He took a bite. He spit it out. He looked at the boys. He smiled. He said they were hard to find. He said Homelander was very upset. Guts was already moving. He did not stand up. He lunged from his knees. He swung the Dragonslayer horizontally. The blade took up the whole room. A-Train eyes widened. He had never seen a human move that fast. He vibrated. He moved out of the way. The sword missed him by an inch. It hit the support pillar. The pillar was cut in half. The ceiling groaned. Dust fell. A-Train laughed. He ran circles around Guts. He punched Guts in the ribs. It sounded like a sledgehammer hitting a tank. Guts slid back. His boots tore the floor. Butcher started shooting. The bullets did nothing. A-Train caught them. He dropped them on the floor. He looked bored. He ran at Huey. He was going to grab him. Guts threw a knife. It was a small throwing knife. A-Train saw it coming. He moved to dodge. But the knife was not aimed at him. It was aimed at the path ahead of him. A-Train stepped on the knife. It went through his boot. It went through his foot. He screamed. He tripped. He tumbled into the wall at 300 miles per hour. The brick cracked. He lay there. He held his foot. He cursed. The floor under erupted. Water geysered up. It was a high-pressure blast. It cut through the wood and concrete like a laser. The deep rose from the hole. He was riding a column of water from a broken main. He looked majestic. He looked angry. He pointed at Guts. He said the ocean demanded justice. He said Guts had polluted the water with his filth. Guts stood up. He ignored the pain in his ribs. He ignored the blood on his neck. He looked at the deep. He looked at A-Train. He saw two monsters. He did not see heroes. Frenchie threw a flashbang. The room turned white. A loud bang disoriented everyone. Butcher grabbed Huey. He yelled for everyone to move. They ran for the back exit. Guts did not run. He stood in the smoke. He waited. The deep sent a wave of water at him. It hit Guts like a truck. It pushed him out the hole in the wall. Guts fell 2 stories. He landed on the pavement of the alley. He landed on his feet. The impact cracked the asphalt. The deep jumped down. He landed gracefully. A-Train limped to the window. He was angry. He was going to kill them all. He injected a vial of Compound 5 into his leg. The pain in his foot vanished. He felt the rush. He vibrated. He jumped out the window. The fight spilled into the street. It was night. The streetlights flickered. People were walking home. They saw the man in black armor. They saw the superheroes. They took out their phones. They started recording. They cheered for A-Train. They cheered for the deep. They thought it was a movie. They thought Guts was a villain. Guts saw the civilians. He did not care. They were meat in the grinder. He focused on the threats. A-Train was fast again. He was a blur. He was hitting Guts from all sides. Punch, kick, slam. Guts' armor was denting. His helmet was cracked. His eye was swelling shut. But Guts was counting. He was learning the rhythm. The speedster was arrogant. He always attacked from the blind spot. Guts planted his feet. He closed his eye. He listened to the wind. He listened to the hum of the V in A-Train veins. He felt the shift in the air pressure. He swung. He did not swing at a target. He swung at a space. The Dragonslayer whistled. It connected. It hit A-Train in the chest. The sound was like a bomb. A-Train ribs shattered. His sternum collapsed. He flew backward. He went through a parked car. The car folded in half. A-Train did not get up. He lay in the wreckage. He was coughing blood. The crowd screamed. They stopped cheering. This was real. This was blood. The Deep roared. He was furious. He ran at Guts. He was strong. He grabbed the sword. He tried to wrestle it from Guts. It was a mistake. Guts let go of the handle with one hand. He grabbed the Deep face with his metal hand. He squeezed. The metal fingers dug into the Deep skin. The Deep screamed. He tried to pull away. He could not. Guts headbutted him. Once. Twice. The Deep nose broke. His gills fluttered. Butcher and the others ran into the street. They had the van. Butcher yelled at Guts to get in. Sirens were wailing. A helicopter was overhead. It shone a spotlight on Guts. The light blinded him. Guts looked up. He snarled. He hated the light. He hated the noise. He raised his arm cannon. Butcher saw what he was doing. Butcher screamed no. He knew what was behind the helicopter. It was a residential building. It was full of people. Guts pulled the lever. The cannon fired. The ball of iron shot up. It missed the helicopter. It hit the side of the apartment building. It hit a gas line on the 5th floor. The explosion was massive. A fireball engulfed the side of the building. Glass rained down. Burning debris fell on the street. People screamed. They ran. Some did not run fast enough. The fire spread instantly. It was a catastrophe. Guts did not look at the fire. He looked at the Deep. The Deep was on his knees. He was dazed. Guts raised the sword to finish him. Butcher drove the van between them. He slammed the brakes. He opened the door. He grabbed Guts by the cape. He pulled him. He yelled that the job was done. He yelled that they had to leave. Guts looked at the fire. He looked at the chaos. It reminded him of the eclipse. It felt like home. He lowered the sword. He climbed into the van. Butcher floored the gas. The van screeched away. They left behind a scene of hell. A-Train was broken in a car. The Deep was bleeding on the street. A building was burning. People were dying. The news cameras caught it all. They zoomed in on the van. They zoomed in on the face of the man in black armor. Inside the van, no one spoke. The air was thick with smoke and guilt. Huey was crying. He had seen a woman catch fire. He was shaking. was staring at Guts. His hands were white on the baseball bat. He looked like he wanted to hit Guts. He looked like he wanted to kill him. Frenchie was driving. He was driving fast and erratic. He was muttering prayers. Butcher was the only one who looked calm. But it was a fake calm. His eyes were dark. He looked at Guts. Guts was cleaning his sword with a rag. He was wiping off the blood of the Deep. He did not look at the others. He did not care about their judgment. He had survived. That was the only law he followed. Butcher spoke. His voice was low. He said Guts made a mess. He said Guts just became public enemy number 1. Guts did not look up. He said the enemy was already hunting them. He said hiding was useless. He said you have to kill the head to kill the beast. Butcher looked out the window. He saw the glow of the fire in the distance. He knew Guts was right. But he also knew the cost. The game had changed. They were not fighting a shadow war anymore. They were fighting a war of terror. Back at Vought Tower, Homelander watched the news. He saw the fire. He saw A-Train body being loaded into an ambulance. He saw the Deep trying to stand up and failing. Homelander's face was blank. He did not blink. He was not angry anymore. He was focused. He saw the man in the armor. He saw the power. He realized this was not a joke. This was a challenge to his godhood. Stan Edgar walked into the room. He was calm. He stood next to Homelander. He looked at the screen. He adjusted his glasses. He said the stock price was dropping. He said the public was terrified. He said the narrative was slipping. Homelander looked at Edgar. He asked what they should do. Edgar looked at the man in the armor on the screen. He said they needed to escalate. He said they needed to authorize the military assets. He said they needed to paint this man not as a villain, but as a terrorist. A foreign agent. A monster that came to destroy America. Homelander smiled. It was a cold smile. He liked that. He liked the idea of being the savior against a monster. He told Edgar to do it. He told Edgar to release the leash. In the van, Guts felt a shift. The brand on his neck stopped bleeding. It started to throb. It was a dull ache. It meant the immediate danger was gone. But the presence was still there. It was all around them. The city was infected. He looked at Huey. He saw the fear. He reached into his pouch. He pulled out a small puck. It was not a puck. It was a fairy dust pouch given to him long ago. It was empty. He crushed it in his hand. He was alone. He had no magic. He only had iron and rage. Butcher turned to Guts. He asked what the plan was now. Guts looked at the sword. He said they needed to sharpen the blade. He said the next one would be harder to kill. He said the blue man would come. Butcher nodded. He said let him come. He said they would be ready. But deep down, Butcher knew they were not ready. He looked at the fire reflecting in the rearview mirror. He wondered if he had invited the devil to kill a demon. He wondered if there would be anything left of the world when they were done. The van disappeared into the night. Behind them, the sirens wailed like a funeral dirge. The war had begun, and the first major catastrophe was just the opening move. The city of New York had a new scar, and Guts was the knife that made it. The van rattled over the potholes of an abandoned industrial park in New Jersey. The city skyline was a distant glow of orange fire and white searchlights behind them. Inside the vehicle, the silence was louder than the engine. Mother's Milk sat with his head in his hands. He was shaking. It was not fear. It was a rage so deep it made his skin tight. He looked up at Guts. The Black Swordsman was sitting on the floor of the van. He was stripping the charred metal plating from his left greave. The smell of burnt flesh and ozone filled the small space. Guts did not look at MM. He did not look at anyone. He was focused on the maintenance of his gear. To him, the silence was just the space between battles. Butcher drove with a grim determination. He watched the rearview mirror. He expected to see a blur of blue or a black stealth jet at any second. He took a sharp turn into a rusted hangar. The tires screeched on the concrete. He killed the engine and the lights. He told everyone to get out. His voice was flat. He did not leave room for argument. They spilled out into the dark hangar. It was cold. The air smelled of rust and pigeon droppings. Frenchie immediately went to work securing the perimeter. He set up tripwires made of fishing line and empty cans. It was primitive, but it was all they had. MM walked up to Butcher. He shoved Butcher in the chest. He asked if Butcher was happy. He asked if burning a building full of families was part of the plan. Butcher did not back down. He slapped MM hand away. He said it was war. He said in war, people die. MM yelled that they were supposed to be the good guys. He pointed at Guts. He said that thing was not a good guy. He said Guts was a rabid dog. Guts stopped walking. He turned slowly. The metal of his boots scraped the concrete. He looked at MM with his one eye. The eye was bloodshot and tired. He said he never claimed to be good. He said he claimed to be alive. Huey stepped between them. He was trembling. He said fighting would not help. He said they were all over the news. He pulled out his phone. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. He held it up. A live feed showed the burning apartment building. The death toll was scrolling at the bottom of the screen. It was 42 and climbing. The news anchor was calling it the worst terror attack since 9/11s. They showed a grainy image of Guts' face. It was from a traffic camera. It was zoomed in. He looked like a demon. The anchor called him the Black Butcher. Butcher looked at the name. He smirked. He said it had a ring to it. MM punched a metal locker. The sound echoed through the hangar. He walked away. He went to the far corner and sat down. He pulled out a picture of his daughter. He stared at it. He was trying to remember why he was doing this. He was trying to find a reason not to walk away or put a bullet in Guts' head. Guts sat on a crate. He took off his cape. It was shredded. He laid the Dragonslayer across his knees. He pulled a whetstone from a pouch. He began to sharpen the blade. The sound was rhythmic. Scrape. 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 It was a hateful sound. It grated on Frenchie nerves. Frenchie walked over. He looked at the sword. He looked at the nicks in the iron. He asked Guts if the metal could hold. He said the alloys in this world were advanced. He said soups were hard. Guts did not stop sharpening. He said iron was iron. He said if you hit something hard enough, it broke. He said it did not matter if it was a demon or a man in a blue suit. Suddenly the air in the hangar changed. It got heavy. Guts felt the hair on his arm stand up. The brand on his neck sizzled. It was a sharp spike of pain. He dropped the whetstone. He grabbed the handle of his sword. He looked at the roof. He said they were found. Butcher looked at him. He asked how he knew. Guts did not answer. He rolled off the crate just as the roof exploded. A beam of red light sliced through the corrugated metal ceiling. It cut through the crate Guts had been sitting on. The crate disintegrated into ash. Molten metal dripped down. Homelander floated down through the hole. He was backlit by the moon. He looked like a dark messiah. His suit was pristine. His eyes were glowing red. He did not look angry. He looked disappointed. He hovered 10 feet off the ground. He looked at the group. He saw the fear in Huey's eyes. He saw the defiance in Butcher. He looked at Guts. Homelander spoke. His voice was amplified by the acoustics of the hangar. He said he expected more. He said he expected a fortress. He said he found rats in a tin can. He descended slowly. His boots touched the floor. Dust billowed out. He walked towards Guts. He said Guts had made a mistake. He said hurting his friends was one thing, but hurting his public image was unforgivable. He said the people needed to feel safe, and to make them feel safe, he had to make an example of the monster. Guts stood up. He held the sword with both hands. He did not charge. He learned from the last time. He knew he could not tank the lasers. He watched Homelander's eyes. He looked for the tell. Homelander sneered. He fired the lasers. Guts moved before the light appeared. He threw his cape into the air. The lasers hit the cape. They burned through it instantly. But the millisecond of distraction was enough. Guts slid low. He slashed at Homelander's legs. The sword hit Homelander's shin. It made a loud clang. It did not cut the skin, but it knocked Homelander off balance. Homelander flew backward. He was shocked. He had braced for the impact, but the physics of the sword were impossible. The mass of the iron carried so much kinetic energy, it defied his flight stability. He crashed into a pile of old machinery. He roared. He flew at Guts at supersonic speed. He punched Guts in the chest plate. The armor caved in. Guts flew across the hangar. He hit the concrete wall. The wall cracked. Guts fell to the floor. He coughed up a large clot of blood. His ribs were grinding together. Butcher opened fire with a high-caliber rifle. He aimed for Homelander's eyes. The bullets bounced off Homelander's face. Homelander ignored him. He walked towards Guts. He was going to rip Guts' head off. Suddenly, a flash of light blinded him. Starlight stepped out from the shadows of the entrance. She had been sent as backup. She was wearing her new suit. She looked conflicted. She saw the destruction. She saw the man in armor bleeding on the floor. She raised her hands. She blasted Homelander with a wave of light energy. Homelander stopped. He looked at her. He was confused. Then he was furious. He asked what she was doing. Starlight yelled that they needed him alive. She said Edgar wanted him for questioning. She lied. She just didn't want to see an execution. Homelander laughed. He said Edgar was not here. He said he was the law. He raised his hand to backhand her. Guts used the moment. He forced his broken body to move. The Berserker Armor was not fully active, but the darkness in it was stirring. It fed on his pain. It stitched his will together. He activated the cannon arm. He did not aim at Homelander. He aimed at the support pillars of the hangar. He fired. The explosion blew out the main structural beams. The roof began to collapse. Tons of steel and concrete rained down. Homelander looked up. He was annoyed. He flew up to catch the falling debris. He had to save Starlight, or the PR would be a nightmare. He held up a massive section of the roof. He screamed at them to run. He said he would find them. He said there was nowhere to hide. Butcher grabbed Guts. Frenchie grabbed Huey. Grabbed the gear. They ran out the back exit as the hangar collapsed behind them. The dust cloud swallowed the building. They ran into the woods surrounding the industrial park. They did not stop running for miles. They ran until they reached a storm drain. They climbed inside. They waded through the filth. They stopped under a manhole cover. It was pitch black. Frenchie turned on a flashlight. He shined it on Guts. Guts was leaning against the wall. He was sliding down. His armor was dented inward at the chest. His breathing was shallow and wet. He was dying. Butcher looked at the injury. He cursed. He said the ribs had punctured the lung. He said they needed a hospital. Shook his head. He said hospitals were out. Every hospital in the state was watching for them. Frenchie looked at Guts' armor. He touched the metal. He said he could fix the armor, but he could not fix the man. Guts grabbed Frenchie's hand. His grip was weak, but still crushing. He whispered. He asked for fire. He asked to be cauterized. He did not understand modern medicine. He only knew field surgery. Butcher nodded. He told Frenchie to get the torch. They laid Guts on the concrete ledge of the sewer. Frenchie heated a knife with a propane torch until it was glowing red. Huey turned away. He threw up in the water. Held Guts' shoulders. He looked at Guts. He saw the scars under the armor. He saw a body that had been broken 1,000 times. He felt a strange respect. He hated the man, but he respected the will. Butcher poured whiskey on the wound. Guts did not scream. He bit down on a piece of leather. His eye rolled back. The smell of burning flesh filled the tunnel again. Guts passed out from the pain. He drifted into a nightmare. He saw the beast of darkness. It was a dog made of shadows. It laughed at him. It told him he was weak. It told him this world was too soft for him. It told him to let go, to let the armor take over, to kill everyone, to kill Butcher, to kill the boy. Guts fought the beast in his mind. He swung his sword in the dark. He screamed Griffith's name. He woke up hours later. The pain was a dull throb. He was lying on a sleeping bag. The boys were sleeping in shifts. Butcher was awake. He was smoking. He was watching Guts. Butcher saw Guts' eye open. He offered him a flask. Guts took it. He drank. The alcohol burned his throat. It felt good. Butcher spoke softly. He said they were in deep trouble. He said Vought had mobilized the military. The National Guard was on the streets. They had checkpoints everywhere. They were scanning for Guts' energy signature, or whatever the hell he was made of. Guts sat up slowly. The chest plate had been hammered out roughly. It was not perfect, but it allowed him to breathe. He asked about the girl, the one with the light. Butcher said her name was Starlight. He said she was one of the 7. He said she saved them. Guts frowned. He did not understand why an enemy would save them. He said she was weak. Butcher shook his head. He said she had a conscience. He said that was rare. He said they could use that. Guts looked at his sword. It was chipped. The fight with Homelander had damaged the edge. He needed a blacksmith. He told Butcher he needed a forge. Butcher laughed. He said this was the 21st century. People didn't use forges. They used 3D printers and CNC machines. Guts did not know those words. He just repeated, He needed fire and iron. Frenchie woke up. He heard them. He said he knew a guy. He said he knew a metal worker in the Bronx who worked for the Russian mob. He said the guy could fix anything. They moved out at dawn. They stole a garbage truck. It smelled worse than the sewer, but it was the best camouflage. Guts sat in the back with the trash bags. He was covered in grime. He fit right in. He felt like garbage. He felt like he belonged in the refuse of this shiny world. They drove through the checkpoints. The soldiers looked at the truck. They waved it through. No one wanted to search a garbage truck. They arrived at the scrapyard in the Bronx. It was a maze of crushed cars and rusted iron. The metalworker was a giant Russian man named Vasily. He had a beard like a bear. He saw the sword. He crossed himself. He said it was a devil weapon. Frenchie talked to him. He bribed him with gold coins Guts had in his pouch. Coins from Midland. Vasily bit the gold. He nodded. He fired up his furnace. Guts worked with Vasily. They did not speak the same language, but they spoke the language of steel. Guts showed him how to fold the metal, how to temper it. They worked for hours. The heat was intense. Guts' sweat washed away the blood. He felt his strength returning. The sword was reshaped. It was slightly lighter now, but sharper. Vasily added tungsten carbide to the edge. He said it would cut through a tank. Guts tested the balance. It sang through the air. It was good. While they worked, Butcher was on the phone. He was calling Mallory. He needed intel. He found out something terrifying. Vought was not just hunting them. They were moving assets. They were transporting something from a secure facility in Vermont to the tower. The manifest said it was biological containment. Butcher had a hunch. He thought it might be a weapon to kill Homelander, or a weapon to kill Guts. He told the team they had a new objective. They were going to intercept the convoy. MM thought it was suicide. He said they should go to ground. Wait for the heat to die down. Butcher said the heat would never die down. He said Guts was a ticking clock. The military would find him eventually. Their only chance was to cause enough chaos to expose Vought, to show the world that the monsters were real. Guts listened. He did not care about exposing Vought. He only cared about the fight. He asked if there would be strong enemies. Butcher smiled. He said it was Vought top security. There would be plenty of enemies. Guts nodded. He put on his helmet. The visor clicked shut. The world turned into a narrow slit of vision. He was ready. But the brand on his neck was itching. It was a warning. The intercept was a trap. He knew it. But he also knew he had to spring the trap to kill the hunter. They drove the garbage truck to the highway overpass. They waited. The convoy appeared. It was massive. 3 black armored personnel carriers, 2 tanks, and a sleek limousine in the middle. Overhead, a drone circled. Frenchie jammed the drone signal. The drone spiraled out of control and crashed. The convoy stopped. Guts jumped from the overpass. He landed on the lead tank. The impact shook the ground. The tank turret turned. Guts stabbed the sword into the barrel of the main gun. He sliced down. The barrel split like a banana. He ripped the hatch open. He threw a grenade inside. He jumped off. The tank exploded. The shockwave knocked the other vehicles sideways. Soldiers poured out of the APCs. They were not normal soldiers. They were wearing Vought tactical gear. They had laser rifles. They opened fire. Guts ran through the fire. The armor deflected the lasers. He swung the sword. Men flew into the air. He was a whirlwind of death. He was not killing them for pleasure. He was clearing a path. Butcher and the boys provided cover fire from the ridge. They used a rocket launcher to take out the second tank. The battle was loud and chaotic. But then the limousine door opened. A woman stepped out. She was wearing a tiara and a metal bodice. It was Queen Maeve. She looked tired. She looked bored. She saw Guts. She saw the way he moved. She recognized the technique. It was not a superpower. It was pure skill. She walked into the fray. She did not use a weapon. She just used her fists. She punched Guts in the face. Guts' head snapped back. His helmet dented. He slid back 10 feet. He looked at her. He saw a warrior. He saw someone who knew the weight of a sword. He respected that. He raised his blade. Maeve got into a fighting stance. She smiled. A real smile. She hadn't had a real fight in years. They clashed. The sound was like a church bell ringing. Iron against Amazonian skin. Sparks flew. Maeve was faster than Guts. She was stronger, but Guts was ruthless. He used his metal hand to grab her hair. He pulled her into a knee strike. Maeve grunted. She headbutted him. They traded blows that would have killed normal humans instantly. Suddenly, the back of the limousine exploded. Not from a bomb, but from the inside. A figure floated out. It was a boy. He was young, maybe 10 years old. He was glowing. His eyes were red. It was Ryan, Homelander's son. He looked scared. He looked at the violence. He saw Guts hitting Maeve. He screamed. A blast of heat vision shot from the boy's eyes. It was uncontrolled. It was wild. It hit Guts in the side. It melted the armor. It burned the flesh. Guts fell. He rolled. He screamed in pain. The brand on his neck went crazy. It bled so much it soaked his collar. He looked at the boy. He saw the aura. It was not just a soup. It was something else. It was the seed of a demon king. Homelander landed next to the boy. He had arrived. He put a hand on Ryan's shoulder. He looked at Guts. He smiled. He said playtime was over. He said now, Guts would see what a real family looked like. He told Ryan to finish it, to kill the bad man. Ryan cried. He shook his head. He didn't want to kill. Guts looked at the boy. He saw himself. He saw the trauma. He saw the innocence being corrupted. He remembered Gambino. He remembered the betrayal. Rage filled him. Not the cold rage of battle, but the hot rage of injustice. He forced himself up. His side was smoking. He held the sword with one hand. He pointed it at Homelander. He roared, "Don't touch him!" The roar surprised everyone. It surprised Butcher. It surprised Maeve. It even surprised Homelander. Guts was defending the boy. Guts charged. He did not charge at the boy. He charged at the father. He was willing to die to stop the cycle. He was willing to be the sacrifice. Butcher saw the moment. He saw the distraction. He pressed a button on a remote. He had rigged the garbage truck with explosives. He drove it remotely into the convoy. The truck slammed into the barrier and detonated. The explosion was massive. It created a wall of fire and smoke. In the confusion, Guts grabbed a smoke bomb. He threw it at Homelander's feet. He turned and ran. He did not run away. He ran towards the woods. He limped. He was broken. But he was alive. Maeve watched him go. She could have stopped him. She could have thrown a piece of debris and crushed his skull. But she didn't. She lowered her hand. She looked at Homelander preening over his son. She looked at the fire. She made a choice. She let the monster go. Because for a second, she saw something in the monster that was more human than the hero. The boys regrouped at a rally point 3 miles away. They were battered. They were exhausted. Guts collapsed against a tree. He was breathing hard. The burn on his side was bad. Looked at him. He didn't say anything. He just handed Guts a bottle of water. The tension was still there. But something had shifted. They had seen Guts try to protect the kid. They had seen a glimmer of humanity in the armor. Butcher paced back and forth. He was furious. They had failed to get the weapon. They had almost died. But he was also thinking. He saw how Homelander reacted to the boy. He saw the weakness. The boy was the key. And Guts was the distraction they needed to get to the boy. The military helicopters were searching the grid in the dark woods. They were hunted. They were hurt. But they were still in the game. And Guts had found a new reason to fight. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was spite. He would not let the White Hawk of this world win. He would drag him down to the mud, even if he had to burn the whole world to do it. The escalation was complete. There was no going back. The next step was total war. The storm drain was cold and smelled of old decay. Water trickled down the concrete walls. It was dark, but Guts did not need light to feel the pain. He lay on a pile of wet rags. His side was a mess of charred meat and melted iron. The heat vision from the boy had done more than burn him. It had cooked him. His body was fighting a fever that would kill a normal man. He shivered. His teeth chattered. The sound was loud in the echo of the tunnel. Frenchie knelt beside him. He had a first aid kit open. He looked at the wound. He shook his head. He spoke to Butcher. He said the tissue was necrotic. He said the infection was already in the blood. He said Guts had hours, maybe less. Mother's Milk stood guard at the manhole cover. He looked back at Guts. He saw the giant man reduced to a trembling heap. He felt pity, but he also felt fear. If this man died, they lost their heavy hitter. If he lived, they were stuck with a monster. Butcher paced in the narrow space. The water splashed under his boots. He smoked a cigarette. The cherry was the only bright light. He looked at Guts. He needed Guts. He needed the rage. He reached into his long coat. He pulled out a small case. He opened it. Inside were 3 vials of green liquid. Temp V. It was a drug that gave powers for 24 hours. It was dangerous. It turned your brain into Swiss cheese. But it healed. Butcher walked over to Guts. He kicked Guts' boot to wake him. Guts opened his one eye. It was glassy. He reached for his sword, but his hand was too weak. Butcher held up the vial. He told Guts this was the only way. He said it was a deal with the devil. He said it would fix the body, but it might break the mind. He said it was pure power in a bottle. Guts looked at the green glow. It reminded him of the fluid in a monster tank. He hated magic. He hated shortcuts. He believed in iron and muscle. But he felt the cold creeping into his heart. He felt his life slipping away. He thought of Griffith. He thought of Casca. He could not die here in a sewer in a strange world. He had to finish the war. He nodded. It was a small nod. A small choice. Butcher did not hesitate. He loaded a syringe. He found a vein in Guts' neck, right next to the brand. He injected the green fluid. The reaction was instant and violent. Guts arched his back. He screamed. It was a sound that made the rats in the tunnel freeze and die of fright. The brand on his neck split open. It did not just bleed. It sprayed blood. The Temp V mixed with the cursed blood. It was a chemical reaction that should not exist. The drug was science, but the brand was astral magic. They collided. Steam exploded from Guts' body. The armor came alive. The beast of darkness sensed the surge of energy. It roared in Guts' mind. It clamped down. The metal spikes inside the armor drove deeper into Guts' bones. They did not hurt him this time. They fused with him. The necrotic flesh on his side hissed. Smoke rose as the cells regenerated at a terrifying speed. The skin knit together. The muscle rebuilt itself. Guts stood up. He did not struggle. He rose like a machine. He felt taller. The pain was gone. In its place was a buzzing static. He could hear the electricity in the wires overhead. He could hear the heartbeat of 20 feet away. He opened his eye. The iris was no longer brown. It was glowing bright green. He looked at his metal hand. He squeezed a rock. The rock turned to dust. This was not just healing. This was evolution. Butcher smiled. It was a grim smile. He asked how it felt. Guts looked at him. He spoke. His voice sounded like 2 boulders grinding together. He said it felt like poison. He said it felt like home. He picked up the Dragonslayer. The giant sword felt weightless. He swung it. The air cracked. The pressure wave knocked Frenchie over. Butcher said the plan was simple. They were going to the tower. They were going to get the boy. He said the boy was the weapon against Homelander. Guts looked at Butcher. The V made his thoughts sharp but aggressive. He saw the lie in Butcher's eyes. Butcher did not want to save the boy. He wanted to use the boy. Guts remembered the scared look on Ryan's face. He remembered being a child soldier. He gripped the sword. He said they would get the boy, but he said no one would use him. Butcher shrugged. He did not argue. He knew better than to argue with a drug-fueled berserker. They needed a way in. Butcher had a burner phone. He sent a text to Queen Maeve. He knew she was breaking. He knew she hated Homelander. He asked for a door. It was a gamble. If she showed the text to Homelander, they were dead. If she ignored it, they were dead. It was a small choice to trust a Supa. Minutes passed. The phone buzzed. It was a picture. A schematic of the waste disposal tunnels under Vought Tower, and a code for the service elevator. Maeve had turned. She was done. They moved out. They did not take the van. They ran through the subway tunnels. Guts took the lead. He ran with a speed that defied physics. The armor clanked against the rails. He saw in the dark. The V gave him night vision. He saw the heat signatures of the maintenance workers. He avoided them. He was a ghost made of iron. They reached the blast door under the tower. It was 6 inches of steel. Frenchie started to set explosives. Guts pushed him aside. He did not use the sword. He pulled back his fist. The metal hand hummed. He punched the door. The impact sounded like a cannon shot. The steel buckled. He punched again. The door flew off its hinges. It slid across the floor of the basement. The alarms did not ring. Maeve had kept her word. They walked to the elevator. Guts barely fit inside. The numbers climbed. The pressure in their ears popped. Butcher checked his gun. He had a special clip. Depleted uranium. MM held his bat. He was sweating. He looked to Guts. Guts was vibrating. The energy was too much for him. He was twitching. The beast was scratching at the door of his mind. The elevator stopped on the 82nd floor. The doors opened. It was a laboratory level. Men in white coats were working on samples. They looked up. They saw the nightmare in the elevator. They dropped their clipboards. Guts stepped out. Security guards in black armor rushed the hallway. They yelled for them to get down. They raised their rifles. They fired. The bullets hit Guts. They flattened against the armor. Guts did not even slow down. He did not dodge. He walked through the hail of lead. He swung the sword. It was a horizontal cut. It went through the wall. It went through the guns. It went through the armor. The guards fell in pieces. Guts did not stop. He was looking for the stairs to the penthouse. He wanted the boy. But the tower had defenses. A section of the ceiling dropped. A figure landed in front of them. It was Black Noir. He was back. He had a cast on his arm, but he looked ready. He held 2 wakizashi blades. They glowed with energy. Vought had upgraded him. Noir looked at Guts. He tilted his head. He remembered the beating in the subway. He was faster this time. He dashed forward. He was a blur. He aimed for the gaps in Guts' armor. The blade sparked against the metal. Guts swung the Dragonslayer. Noir dodged. He jumped off the wall. He stabbed Guts in the neck. The blade pierced the chainmail. Blood flowed. But Guts did not flinch. The V killed the pain. He grabbed Noir by the head. He squeezed. Noir slashed Guts' arm. Guts did not let go. He slammed Noir into the floor. The concrete cracked. Guts lifted his foot. He stomped. Noir rolled away. The fight was brutal. It was destroying the lab. Glass shattered. Chemicals spilled. Fire started in the corner. Guts was losing control. The V was making him reckless. He swung the sword with too much force. He hit a support column. The column crumbled. The ceiling sagged. Butcher yelled at Guts to finish it. Guts roared. The helmet clamp snapped shut. The metal jaws covered his mouth. The eye slit narrowed. The berserker was fully awake. The green light from the eye intensified. It looked like a searchlight. Guts dropped the sword. He charged Noir. He tackled him. They crashed through the wall into the next room. It was a server room. Guts pinned Noir. He pounded him with his fists. The sound was wet and heavy. Noir tried to fight back. He stabbed Guts in the chest. Guts bit Noir's shoulder. He tore a chunk of the suit and flesh. Noir screamed. It was a muffled, gurgling scream. Guts grabbed Noir's broken arm. He pulled. There was a sickening pop. He tore the arm off. Noir went limp. He was not dead, but he was broken. Guts stood up. He was panting. Steam rose from his armor. He looked at the severed arm in his hand. He threw it away. He looked for the next enemy. He turned to his friends. He looked at MM. The green eye focused on him. Guts took a step towards MM. The beast did not distinguish between friend and foe. It only saw meat. Butcher saw the look. He raised his gun. He aimed at Guts' head. He yelled Guts' name. "Soldier, stand down!" Guts froze. The word soldier triggered a memory. Band of the Hawk. He shook his head. The helmet unlocked. The jawpiece retracted. He gasped for air. He was sweating blood. The V was burning him up from the inside. He looked at Butcher. He nodded. He was back. For now. Suddenly, the building shook. A boom echoed from above, then another. Something was coming down. The window in the server room shattered inward. Homelander floated in. He was holding Queen Maeve by the neck. She was beaten. Her face was swollen. Her armor was torn. Homelander looked at the boys. He looked at Guts. He smiled. It was a smile of pure insanity. He threw Maeve at them. She hit the servers. Sparks flew. She groaned. She could not stand up. Homelander landed. He dusted off his hands. He looked at Guts. He sniffed the air. "You smell like a test tube," Homelander said. "You took the juice. That's cheating." Guts picked up his sword. He stepped in front of the group. He felt the power of the V surging. He felt he could match this man now. He pointed the sword at Homelander. "I am not a hero," Guts said. "I am a hunter." Homelander laughed. His eyes glowed red. He fired his lasers. Guts did not block. He swung the sword into the beams. The V-enhanced reflex allowed him to cut the light. The lasers deflected. They hit the floor. They hit the ceiling. The room was sliced apart. Homelander stopped laughing. He looked annoyed. He flew at Guts. They collided. The shockwave blew the windows out. Papers flew into the night sky of New York. Guts held his ground. He was pushed back, his boots carving trenches in the floor, but he did not fall. He pushed back. He was strong enough. The fight that followed was a natural disaster contained in a building. They went through walls. They went through floors. They fell down to the 79th floor. It was a marketing office. Desks were pulverized. Homelander punched Guts in the face. The helmet crumpled. Guts headbutted Homelander. Homelander's nose broke. Blood poured down his lip. He touched it. He stared at the blood. He screamed in rage. He grabbed Guts' sword. He tried to melt it. The sword glowed orange. Guts kicked Homelander in the stomach. He ripped the sword free. It was hot. It sizzled in the air. Guts swung it. The hot blade slashed Homelander's chest. It cut deep. The invulnerable skin parted. Homelander gasped. He backed away. He looked at the wound. He looked at Guts with genuine fear. But the massive outcome of the fight was not the wound. It was the damage to the building. The main gas line for the upper levels had been severed in the crash. The sparks from the server room ignited it. A massive explosion ripped through the 80th floor. The fireball engulfed them all. The floor collapsed completely. The upper 20 floors of Vought Tower shifted. The metal groaned. The tower began to tilt. In the chaos, Ryan ran down the stairs. He had escaped his room during the fight. He entered the ruined floor. He saw the fire. He saw his father bleeding. He saw the black monster. He was terrified. He cried out. Homelander heard him. He looked up. "Ryan!" Butcher heard him too. Butcher was bleeding from a head wound. He saw the boy. He saw the opportunity. He did not run to save the boy. He ran to grab him. He tackled Ryan. He pulled him behind a piece of concrete. He put the barrel of his gun against the boy's temple. "Stop!" Butcher screamed. His voice cracked. "Stop, or I blow his brains out!" The fighting stopped. The fire roared around them. The building creaked, ready to fall. Guts stood up from the debris. His armor was glowing red-hot. His green eye locked onto Butcher. He saw the gun. He saw the child. Homelander froze. He looked at Butcher. He looked at his son. His eyes were wide. "Let him go, William." Butcher laughed. It was a manic laugh. "Not a chance, Sunshine. You move, he dies. You fly, he dies. You blink, he dies." Guts looked at Butcher. The V was twisting his mind, but the core of Guts remained. He hated this. He hated hostages. He hated threatening children. It went against his code. It went against the memory of the innocence he lost. He took a step towards Butcher. "Don't," Guts growled. Butcher looked at Guts. "Stay back. This is the only way." The team was fractured. The tower was falling. The monsters were at a stalemate. And the small choice to use the V had led them here to the edge of hell. Guts was powerful enough to kill Homelander, but he was losing his soul. Butcher had the leverage, but he had lost his humanity. And Homelander, the god of this world, was finally helpless, not because of strength, but because of love. The floor beneath them groaned again. The tower listed another degree. Sirens wailed from the street far below. The final convergence was set. There was no escape, only a fall. The structural steel of Vought Tower groaned like a dying whale. The sound vibrated through the soles of every boot on the tilted floor of the 79th level. Dust rained down from the cracked ceiling, coating the standoff in a gray film. Billy Butcher did not blink. His finger was white on the trigger of the heavy pistol pressed against the temple of Ryan. The boy was sobbing quietly, his tears cutting tracks through the dust on his face. Homelander hovered 3 feet off the ground, his cape hanging limp, his hands twitching at his sides. His eyes were wide, darting between the gun and the face of the man who wanted to take everything from him. Guts stood 10 paces away. The green light from his single eye cut through the gloom. The Temp V was boiling in his veins, mixing with the dark, odic force of the Berserker Armor. He felt the beast of darkness laughing in the back of his skull. It told him to kill them all. It told him the boy was just a larva of a demon. It told him Butcher was weak. It told him Homelander was meat. Guts fought the voice. He clenched his jaw so hard a tooth cracked. He looked at Butcher. He saw a reflection of Gambino. He saw a man who would sell a child's life for a moment of satisfaction. Guts moved. He did not run. He stepped forward with the weight of a glacier. He spoke. His voice was distorted by the metal jaw of the helmet. He told Butcher to put the gun down. He said they did not kill children. Butcher snapped his head towards Guts. He yelled that Guts did not understand. He said this was the only leverage they had. He said if he let the boy go, Homelander would laser them all in half. Butcher was desperate. He was terrified. He saw the golden opportunity to hurt the soup slipping away. Homelander saw the division. He saw the hesitation. It was all he needed. He did not attack Butcher directly. He attacked the floor. He fired a microburst of heat vision into the main support beam directly under Butcher's feet. The steel melted instantly. The concrete gave way. Butcher lost his footing. He fell backward. The gun fired. The bullet went wide. It shattered a window. Ryan screamed and scrambled away, crawling towards his father. The tower lurched. The top 30 floors began to slide off the main trunk of the building. Gravity took hold. The floor tilted to a 45-degree angle. Desks, computers, and bodies slid towards the open wall. Butcher grabbed a rebar sticking out of the concrete. He dangled over the abyss of the New York skyline. Huey and Mother's Milk were clinging to a door frame near the elevator shaft. They were screaming. Guts did not hold on. He stabbed the Dragonslayer into the floor. The sword sank deep into the metal and concrete. He held the handle with one hand. With the other, he reached out. Not for Butcher, for the enemy. Homelander had grabbed Ryan. He was hugging the boy, shielding him with his cape. He looked at Guts. He sneered. He thought he had won. He flew up, intending to crash through the ceiling and escape, but Guts activated the cannon arm. He did not fire a ball. He fired an explosive charge directly behind him. The recoil launched him forward. He let go of the sword. He flew through the air. He tackled Homelander in mid-flight. The impact was like a missile strike. Homelander lost his grip on Ryan. The boy fell. He fell out of the building. He fell into the open air of the city. Homelander screamed his son's name. He tried to dive after him. Guts did not let him. Guts wrapped his legs around Homelander's waist. He grabbed Homelander's cape. He punched him in the ear. The armor enhanced the blow. Homelander's equilibrium shattered. They spun uncontrollably. They crashed through the glass facade of the sliding upper section. They were in freefall. Queen Maeve, who had been lying broken near the servers, saw the boy fall. She saw the innocents plummeting towards the street. She found a reserve of strength she did not know she had. She ran. She jumped out of the shattered building. She was not a flyer. She was a jumper. She dove like an arrow. She caught up to Ryan. She grabbed him in midair. She turned her body so her back would take the impact. She smashed into the roof of a lower building, a parking garage. She bounced. She rolled. She crashed into a parked car. She did not get up. But Ryan was safe. He was crying, bruised, but alive. High above them, the duel continued in the sky. Homelander and Guts were a tangle of blue fabric and black steel. They were falling past the other skyscrapers. Homelander was trying to fly, trying to stabilize, but Guts was a dead weight of fury. Guts bit into Homelander's neck. He tore skin. Homelander howled. He jammed his thumbs into the gaps of Guts' armor, trying to crush the ribs. Guts did not care. The V made pain a distant memory. Homelander managed to orient himself. He flew straight down. He wanted to smash Guts into the pavement. He accelerated. The wind roared. The ground rushed up to meet them. At the last second, Homelander pulled up. He wanted Guts to detach and splatter. Guts anticipated it. He released his legs but kept his grip on the cape. The momentum swung him under Homelander. Guts swung his metal hand. He caught the edge of a gargoyle on an old Gothic building. The stone shattered, but it slowed him down. He let go of the cape. Homelander crashed into the street. He made a crater the size of a swimming pool. Cars were flipped. Asphalt was liquidized. Guts fell the last 50 feet. He landed on a bus. The bus collapsed. The windows blew out. Guts rolled off the roof and hit the street. He stood up immediately. The armor forced his legs to straighten. The bones in his shins were micro-fractured, but the suit splinted them instantly. The dust cloud was thick. The sounds of the city were gone, replaced by the ringing in their ears. Police sirens were approaching from all directions, but they were distant. This was ground zero. Homelander climbed out of the crater. He was dirty. His suit was ripped. His hair was a mess. He was bleeding from the nose, the lip, and the neck. He looked around. He saw the people. Civilians were running. Some were filming. They were seeing their god bleed. They were seeing him look scared. Homelander hated them. He wanted to burn them all. He wanted to restart the world. He looked at Guts. The Black Swordsman was walking towards him. Guts did not have his sword. It was still stuck in the tower floor somewhere above. He only had his hands, his cannon, and his knives. He also had the jagged, broken half of a light pole he had ripped from the sidewalk. It was a crude spear. Homelander laughed. It was a broken, hysterical sound. He asked Guts if he thought he could win with a stick. He said he was the Homelander. He said he could do whatever he wanted. Guts did not speak. He threw the spear. It moved faster than sound. Homelander dodged, but he was slow. He was tired. The spear grazed his thigh. It tore a chunk of muscle. Homelander fell to one knee. He looked at the wound. He had never seen his own muscle before. It was red and wet. It was human. The realization broke something in his mind. He was not a god. He was just a product. He looked at Guts with pure hatred. His eyes glowed. He unleashed a full-power blast of heat vision. He didn't care about aiming. He swept the beam across the street. It sliced through cars, mailboxes, and storefronts. Guts crouched. He crossed his arms. The armor plates on his bracers were the thickest part of the suit. He took the beam. The metal turned white-hot. The smell of burning iron filled the air. Guts' flesh underneath cooked, but the V regenerated it as fast as it burned. It was an agony that would have killed a battalion of men. Guts pushed forward. He walked into the beam. He forced his way through the pressure. He reached Homelander. He grabbed Homelander head with both hands. He headbutted him. The helmet smashed into Homelander forehead. Homelander vision blurred. The laser stopped. Guts punched him in the gut. Homelander doubled over. Guts kneed him in the face. Homelander fell on his back. Guts mounted him. He started to punch. Left, right, left, right. Each blow was a thunderclap. Homelander's face began to lose its shape. His nose was flattened. His teeth were shattered. He tried to push Guts off, but Guts was heavier than a mountain. The beast of darkness was in control now. It wanted to eat. It wanted to tear the heart out. Butcher, Huey, and had managed to slide down the debris of the tower to a lower roof and take the fire escape to the street. They ran towards the fight. They saw Guts beating Homelander to death. It was brutal. It was not a hero winning. It was a slaughter. Huey looked away. He felt sick. Looked grim. He knew this was necessary, but it was ugly. Butcher watched with a strange expression. He saw the violence he had always craved. He saw the soup being humbled. But he also saw that Guts was lost. The man was gone. Only the monster remained. Butcher raised his rifle. He aimed, not at Homelander, at Guts. "Enough!" Butcher yelled. Guts did not stop. He raised his metal hand. The fingers were shaped like claws. He was going to rip Homelander's throat out. Suddenly, a small rock hit Guts in the helmet. It was a pebble. It did nothing. But it made Guts pause. He looked up. Ryan was standing there. He was limping. Maeve was behind him, leaning against a wall, barely conscious. Ryan was crying. He was looking at his father. He was looking at the monster, on top of his father. "Stop it," Ryan whispered. "Please." Guts froze. The green light in his eye flickered. The word "please" cut through the red haze of the beast. It reminded him of the Moonlight Boy. It reminded him of the innocence he fought to protect. He looked down at Homelander. The hero was sobbing. Homelander was reaching out a hand towards Ryan. He was begging. He looked pathetic. The Temp V began to crash. The energy spike dropped off a cliff. Guts felt his heart stutter. The armor sensed the weakness. It tried to drive the spikes deeper to force the body to move. Guts coughed. Blood sprayed the inside of his helmet. He rolled off Homelander. He collapsed on the asphalt. The armor retracted the helmet. Guts' face was pale. His veins were black. He gasped for air. Homelander saw his chance. He scrambled backward. He looked at Ryan. He expected Ryan to come to him, to help him. But Ryan did not move. Ryan looked at his father with horror. He saw the monster beneath the skin. He saw the cowardice. "Ryan!" Homelander wheezed. "Come here. We have to go." Ryan took a step back. He shook his head. "No." Homelander's face crumpled. This hurt more than the beating. This was the true defeat. He looked at the crowd. They were silent. They were judging him. He looked at Butcher. Butcher was smiling. It was a cold, satisfied smile. Homelander realized he had lost the narrative. He had lost the love. And without the love, he was nothing. He stood up. He swayed. He looked at Guts one last time. He wanted to kill him. But he was afraid. He was afraid of the man who walked through fire. Homelander turned. He crouched. He launched himself into the air. He flew erratic and slow. He fled. He did not fly to the tower. He flew away from the city. He ran away. The silence in the street was heavy. Butcher lowered his rifle. He walked over to Guts. Guts was staring at the sky. His breathing was shallow. Butcher looked down at him. "You let him go," Butcher said. There was no anger in his voice, just exhaustion. Guts did not answer. He closed his eye. He was tired. So tired. Maeve limped over. She put a hand on Ryan's shoulder. She looked at the boys. She nodded. It was a truce. For today. She took Ryan and walked away into the shadows of the alley. She knew Vought would be coming. She had to hide the boy. Sirens got louder. Black armored vans screeched around the corner. Vought security, the cleanup crew. Butcher looked at the vans. He looked at his team. "Grab him," Butcher ordered. MM and Frenchie grabbed Guts by the arms. He was heavy, dead weight. They dragged him. They ran down the subway entrance. They disappeared into the dark underbelly of the city just as the spotlight swept the street. They retreated to the safe house in the Bronx. It was a basement under a laundromat. They laid Guts on a table. He was burning up. The V withdrawal was hitting him hard. He was hallucinating. He was thrashing. He called out names they didn't know. Casca, Griffith, Judeau. Frenchie worked on him for hours. He flushed his system with saline. He stitched the wounds that the V hadn't healed right. He prayed to every god he knew. Butcher sat in the corner, drinking. He watched Guts. He wondered if he should have put a bullet in him. He wondered if he had just traded one apocalypse for another. 2 days later, Guts woke up. The fever broke. He sat up. The armor was in a pile on the floor. It looked like a dead insect. Guts looked at his body. He was covered in new scars. The brand on his neck was scarred over, a mess of keloid tissue. It was silent. The V had burned out the nerve endings, or maybe it had burned out the magic for a while. Butcher walked in. He tossed a newspaper on the table. The headline read, "Vought Tower Collapse, Terrorist Attack, or Heroic Failure." The article was confused. Vought was spinning it. They said Homelander was injured, saving the city from a foreign super-terrorist. They said he was recovering in a secret location. But the internet knew the truth. The videos of Homelander getting beaten were everywhere. The memes were destroying him. He was a laughingstock. "You broke him," Butcher said. "You didn't kill him, but you broke him." Guts looked at the paper. He didn't care about the politics. He asked about the boy. Butcher said Maeve had him. He said the kid was off the grid. Guts nodded. That was good. "So what now?" Guts asked. His voice was a rasp. Butcher lit a cigarette. He blew a smoke ring. Now? Now the real war starts. Vought is cornered. Homelander is loose and crazy. And every soup in the world knows that a man can make a god bleed. Butcher leaned forward. His eyes were dark. "We need to find your sword. It's buried in the rubble. And then we need to finish the job." Guts looked at his metal hand. He clenched it. The magnet clicked. He thought about his world. He thought about his quest. He realized he was stuck here. The portal was gone. The path was closed. He was a stranger in a strange land. But the mission was the same. Survive. Struggle. Fight. He stood up. He was weak, but he could stand. He looked at Butcher. "Get the sword," Guts said. They walked out of the room. The team was waiting. Frenchie was cleaning a gun. MM was reading a book. Huey was looking at a map. They looked up when Guts entered. There was fear in their eyes, but there was also respect. They had seen the abyss, and they had seen the man who stared back. Guts walked to the door. He opened it. The sunlight hit his face. It was a bright, artificial light of the modern world. He stepped out. The city was waiting. The monsters were waiting. The narrative of this world had been rewritten in blood and iron. The age of the untouchable superhero was over. The age of the struggler had begun. And somewhere, in the dark clouds above, the beast of darkness smiled. It knew that as long as there was a war, it would never go hungry again. The cleanup crews at Ground Zero of Vought Tower worked in silence. The dust had settled, but the smell of ozone and burnt concrete lingered like a curse. In the center of the debris field where the 79th floor had crashed into the street, a perimeter had been established. Not by police, but by the private military contractors of Vought. They surrounded a single object. It was a slab of iron, black and chipped, standing upright in the rubble where it had fallen. A heavy lift crane strained against it, the cables humming with tension. The operator signaled that it was no use. The sword would not move. It was as if the weapon itself refused to be touched by anyone unworthy. It stood as a monument to the day the sky fell. Inside a temporary command bunker in Long Island, Stan Edgar watched the footage on a tablet. The stock ticker at the bottom of the screen was a flat line of red. Vought International had lost 40% of its value in 48 hours. But Edgar was not looking at the money. He was looking at the comments section. For decades, the public conversation about superheroes had been awe and fear. Now it was mockery. The video of Homelander crawling away bleeding and begging had been viewed 3 billion times. The narrative was broken. The gods were just biological experiments, and they could be beaten. Edgar took off his glasses and cleaned them. He realized that the era of manufacturing heroes was over. The era of manufacturing weapons to kill them had just become the most profitable industry on Earth. Miles away in a desolate barn in upstate New York, the Homelander sat in the dark. He was curled into a ball in the corner of a horse stall. His suit was still torn. The blood on his face had dried into a crust. He stared at a rusted nail on the wooden wall. He did not blink. He replayed the fight in his mind over and over, the pain of the iron sword, the weight of the metal hand, the look in his son's eyes. He whispered to himself. He whispered that they were all insects. He whispered that he would burn them all. But his voice trembled. For the first time in his life he felt cold. He looked at his hands. They were shaking. He was not planning a comeback. He was planning a massacre. But he was waiting. He was waiting for the fear to leave him, but it had taken root deep in his marrow. In the basement of the Bronx safe house, the air was thick with the smell of oil and determination. Frenchie and Mother's Milk walked in, carrying a heavy tarp. They set it down on the workbench. They pulled back the canvas. It was the Dragonslayer. They had stolen it back from the cleanup site, using a distraction involving 3 garbage trucks and a homemade EMP. Gut stood up from his cot. He walked over to the blade. He touched the cold iron. It was scarred just like him. He gripped the handle. The weight was familiar. It was the only thing in this world that made sense. Butcher stood in the doorway, a shadow among shadows. He did not smile. He just nodded. The board was reset. The pieces were moving. The what-if was no longer a question. It was a history being written in real time, one swing of the sword at a time. The world did not end with a bang, but with the sound of iron hitting the pavement echoing forever.